lead us in that. I would ask all to rise. Lord, we give thanks for the town of Pelham as we meet to deliberate the matters of business on behalf of all people. Direct the members of Pelham Council through the paths of many decisions placed before them this evening. May each council member show wisdom, strength, courage, and honor as they strive for goodwill in all their considerations. Amen.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love, in all thy sons command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north, strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you all. First, we have a motion to approve the agenda. It has been moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Kersey, that the agenda for the June 17th, 2013 regular meeting of Council be adopted. Are there any changes to the agenda? Amendments? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. The next item is disclosure of pecuniary interest, that is conflicts of interest and the general nature thereof. Do any members have any conflicts of interest they need to disclose at this time? Councillor Kersey.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have a conflict with item 13.1. My wife is the owner of the property in which Massimo's is a tenant.
Okay, thank you. That's so noted. Others? Can that be noted? Thank you. The next is hearing of presentations, delegations, and our regional councillor report. The first is a presentation by Ian Thornton, who is the Planning and Information Manager. I wrote all this down. Information Solution Manager Solutions? Supervisor, thank you very much. With the Ministry of Natural Resources, I'll just say that, Mr. Thornton. So thank you very much for joining us this evening. You're here to talk about the area of natural and scientific interest.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor Augustine and members of Council. I'd like to start by thanking you very much for the invitation to be here tonight to talk about the Fawn Hill Came Delta ANSI, which I hope you'll find both interesting from a scientific perspective and also important and timely from a planning perspective. I'm just going to provide a very high-level overview of some of the key themes related to the Fawn Hill Came Delta ANSI. Firstly, just talking about essentially what it is, some of the highlights of the CAME, a little bit about the history around how we define the boundary for the ANSI, our current process of updating the ANSI boundary, a little bit on the explanation of some of our recent changes which are important, and then our next steps. So what is the Fawn Hill Came Delta ANSI? Essentially, this is a feature that was created during the retreat of the Wisconsin Glacier, which covered all of Lake Erie and the entire Niagara Peninsula, and the southern limit of the ice field remained nearly stationary at the Niagara Escarpment, approximately near Tice Road in Effingham. And as that glacier melted, it formed a series of glacial lakes in which were deposited layers of sediment in the shape of a fan delta. And this landform is marked by a number of significant features, including beach bluffs, terraces, and sandbars related to the glaciofluvial and glaciolacustrine processes. This is what the feature looks like from a topographical standpoint. I'm going to use my little mouse here. So this is essentially where the glacier stood still and melted, where the meltwater deposited the sediments into this upside down V shape, which is the Kame Delta. Some of the highlights of the Kame: it's one of the most dominant landforms in the entire Niagara Peninsula and includes the highest point of elevation in the region. It has 4 key landform features or elements, including that ice contact ridge, which I just pointed out, a main terrace, an upper terrace, and storm beaches close to where the upper parts of the lake were, and then the delta front slope, which is sort of the toe of the Kame, the delta. And due to its size, complexity, and glacial history associated with the Niagara Escarpment, M&R considers it to be an important component of Ontario's geological history. And M&R has therefore identified it as a provincially significant area of natural and scientific interest. Just a little bit on the history here of how the Kame was identified. Originally, it was proposed as a candidate nature reserve in 1976 as part of a larger evaluation of earth science features within the Niagara Escarpment planning area. At that time, the boundary was still very much preliminary in nature, and it was understood that further work was needed to more accurately depict the boundary. Then in 1988, that boundary was refined for purposes of M&R's Conservation Land Tax Rebate Program. And this has been the established boundary ever since then for the past 22 years. In 1997, the ANSI was reviewed again by one of M&R's geoscientists who recommended that the ANSI should be enlarged because there were a few significant elements that were not adequately captured. And then over several decades, we've seen large portions of the Kame that have been lost both to aggregate extraction as well as residential development. And these pressures and the incomplete representation made it important to review the ANSI and update the boundary. So in terms of the overall process, from time to time, M&R does revisit ANSIs to update their values and boundaries through a process that we call an ANSI confirmation procedure. It's strictly a science-based process in that it does not deal with any planning, socioeconomic matters, or economic matters. And M&R is responsible for providing municipalities with the most current ANSI information, including the boundary, for planning purposes. And the process of reviewing the Fawn Hill Kame Delta ANSI began in 2007 in response to the need to update its values, as I just mentioned, and to emerging planning needs. So the consultation on the ANSI boundary began in 2009, which invited comments from both affected landowners and key stakeholders. And based on those submissions and in-depth reviews of M&R's documents, additional field investigations, we determined that the boundary needed to be revised to better represent the size, shape, distribution, and the morphology of the original landform. So the current proposal, which you'll see in a moment, this will be our last iteration of the boundary. And this proposal, we think, appropriately adds to the representation that best reflects the significance of the feature. I know it's a bit detailed in nature. It's because the landform is so large, but this is it here. The red line is the current boundary, which is the 1988 boundary. And the blue line is our proposed boundary, which we are currently in the process of consulting on. So just a few highlights of some of the recent changes. You'll see a bunch of these little holes, or cookie holes, cookie cutters as I call them. So footprints of structures in disturbed areas, we have cookie cut out of the ANSI because they no longer sustain any scientific values. We've included a portion here in the northwest of portion 1 because it contains significant hydrogeological values. We've also included some of the forested slopes of the golf course in the east part of portion 1, which is the eastwardly extension of that significant ice contact slope. And these lands here, just east of Effingham and south of Tice Road, we've added these because they're directly linked with the lands in the north and the lands in the south. And when they're combined, they comprise the only remaining complete transect of the original Fawn-Hill-Came Delta landform. And so it's very significant from an educational and scientific perspective. This area here also captures a series of glacial lake sandbars that vary in relief from a couple of meters in the north to fairly indistinct in the south. But that variation is important from a scientific and diversity perspective as well. And these lands have always remained within the ANSI ever since 1976 and have remained largely unchanged. So I don't know if you remember the big sort of topographical map that I showed you of the larger scientific feature. Our objective is not to capture the entire scientific feature, and you may ask, well, why not? So here are some reasons. This landform feature is extremely large, and it's not necessary for us to capture the entire feature. We're only interested in protecting key geological values. The ANSI program protects the areas that best represent the significant elements and that are least disturbed. And much of the land that's in the original landform feature is heavily disturbed, both by aggregate extraction and urban development, and no longer represent those important values. So in terms of next steps for our ANSI confirmation of the boundary, we mailed out consultation packages on June the 3rd. To affected landowners and stakeholders, and they have until July the 8th to provide comments on the science. At that point, M&R will review the comments and make any final boundary determinations, and at that point, the boundary will be final after the sign-off by M&R managers. And it will be extremely important to ensure that the new official plan includes both the appropriate policies as well as mapping schedules to properly protect this ANSI. Thank you very much. I'll open to questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Thornton, for your presentation. Questions from members of council for our presenter? Very comprehensive and certainly outlined in the report. I think the clerk has indicated that we do have a copy of it and we can include it in the minutes of this meeting and make it available. Councillor Ribbiak.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for your presentation. Just for clarity, because I've got a very simple mind. The part of the feature which is protected, I take it is protected from some forms of development, but not from others. I would imagine that those forms of development that don't affect the feature would be allowed, others would not.
Yes, that's
Can you describe a little bit, for example, in that portion that is east of Effingham and south of Tice, what sorts of developments would ANSI protect that land from? Which ones would be allowed? Can you just describe that a little bit for us?
Which ones would be allowed? It might be easier to describe the kinds of impacts that would be negative in nature. So
Okay.
as a provincially significant ANSI, it's recognized in the provincial policy statement as a significant natural heritage feature, where development may be permitted if it can be demonstrated that no negative impacts to the feature would occur. And because this is an earth science feature as opposed to a life science ANSI, it's primarily the topography of the feature that is so critical to maintain, as well as the viewscape. So for example, from the top of Tice Road and Effingham, that beautiful view down to Lake Ontario, that is significant both from a natural appreciation standpoint as well as a scientific standpoint. So it's really the topography and the viewscapes that are important to maintain. So any kind of land use activity that you can think of that might compromise that should ideally not be permitted. So things like aggregate extraction, any kind of activity which requires major grading, such as subdivisions, even things like large driveways where you might need retaining walls or that sort of thing, or where you need significant grading. So it's primarily topographical disturbances as well as structures. So I mentioned that we remove the footprints of houses and other structures from the ANSI because it no longer contains scientific value. So those are the other examples.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much.
Others? Councillor Kersey?
I have two questions, Mr. Mayor. Your M&R's conclusion seems to be fly in the face of some scientific experts such as Dr. Menzies, who recommends, because of the very size of the cane, that it should be protected in its entirety because it's one of the largest, if not the largest, cane of its nature in fact, the world. And so, could you comment on that? Why the disparity between what a geological expert is recommending and what the M&R's conclusion might be?
Yes, well, we've consulted fairly extensively with Dr. Menzies. He provided some very valuable input during the consultation process, and it's partially because of some of the scientific comments that he made that we've enlarged the ANSI and added to it fairly significantly since the first iteration of the boundary came out. A couple of things to keep in mind, and I refer back to, I think it was my second last slide, where I talked about the reasons why we don't need to protect the entire ANSI. So the reasons for that essentially being that it's a huge landform, and the ANSI program is not intended to protect necessarily the entire feature. Certainly not features of this type of large glacial landforms. Some of the other ANSIs that we have in the province where the nature of the feature is very small or distinct, we might just capture the entire thing. But because of the sheer size of this landform, it's not important to protect the entire feature. Only those areas that that best contribute to the representation and the profile of the ANSI. So really it's the best parts.
And my second question through you, Mr. Mayor, is your last slide, the very last line said that we should develop policies which would aid in protecting the ANSI. What sort of policies did you have in mind when you made that statement? Could you outline some of the policies that we might incorporate into our new OP?
Well, I'll leave the detailed determination of policies up to the town and the partners. But generally speaking, we're looking to see policies, first of all, that recognize the ANSI as a provincially significant feature, recognize its values, and also require that some sort of a study, such as an environmental impact statement, be undertaken if development is proposed within the ANSI. And that speaks to the conditions under the provincial policy statement with respect to demonstrating no negative impacts.
Just as a follow-up to that, when one looks at the provincial policy statement and the need for an environmental study and what have you, a lot of times those policies fly in the face of each other. They're almost mutually exclusive. On one hand, we want to protect the nature and we want to protect these specific characteristics. On the other hand, there seems to be a lot of great exclusions made for the aggregate industry, for example, where, you know, ANSIs could be destroyed because the province allows it, even though the local municipality might have policies in place that would resist that type of development. Could you comment on that?
Yeah, I can't speak specifically to the example that you gave in the end there. If you're thinking about the aggregate operations within the CAME currently, those operations have existed for a number of decades, long before the ANSI was first identified. But with respect to competing land uses, it's important from a planning perspective to recognize that the PPS contains a number of provincially significant values that must be considered holistically. Now, some of the language in the provincial policy statement is hierarchical in nature, in that sometimes it speaks to the need to consider certain things, and other times it's a shall. And so it's important to consider all those values holistically at the same time and make appropriate planning decisions on that basis. So.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Others with questions? You commented a little bit, Mr. Thornton, about the size, and some ANSIs across the province are small, and this is quite a large one. Is this one of the, is this the largest in the province as it's currently established? It's hundreds and hundreds of acres.
It's 412 hectares, actually.
Okay, 412 hectares.
No, it's not the largest. Now, I'm not the senior conservation geologist, so I can't speak to some of the other earth science ANSIs in the province, but we do have some that are significantly larger, particularly features in the north where there are very few constraints to its, to the boundary definition. So, as you can imagine, down in this part of the world with fragmented landscapes, it's quite difficult to identify features that haven't been disturbed.
Okay, thank you. So it's 412 hectares currently, and it's going to be,
No, that's what the size of the proposed ANSI. I believe the current one is 376, I believe.
so it's actually enlarging in terms of the production.
Enlarging in terms of the size of protection.
Right.
Yes.
You didn't speak about in your presentation the I guess is it Area 3? The newer area, the enhanced area that's
Yes.
being, can you just speak about that a little bit, please?
Sure, I can quickly, it's this part down here.
Yes, yeah.
This captures the key element that is referred to as the delta front slope. So if you can imagine, the highest part of the KM delta is here, the ice contact slope, and then it slopes down. As you progress southward on Effingham, it slopes down. So this part down here is the toe of the KM. And it was this area that was not previously captured, represented in the earlier boundary, which is the red one, so you can see what was not captured. So that was a significant addition.
Okay, thank you. And again, you spoke about the transect. I think when you spoke about it, you didn't have the entire slide here. So
Yes.
this might give a better representation.
That's
Can you
this
just,
area right here, right?
Expand on that, please.
Yeah, so our previous boundary iteration had this segment here and this portion down here, but we didn't include this portion, and we believe that including this is critical, because not only is it in quite good condition, in other words, it hasn't been disturbed over the many decades, but also because, where's my mouse? Because the feature is a north-south sloping feature, that represents the only remaining portion of the KM that hasn't been affected. So we have aggregate operations on this side and residential development on the east and to the south. So as you can see, it's been encroaching on both sides, and this represents the last remaining complete transect.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. And I did have questions, which you answered them regarding the protection, and I think Mr. Hagman did address that in his letter, saying that these matters should be addressed through planning policies under the Planning Act. So perhaps that's something that we could certainly look at and make sure it is, as you suggest, in the new official plan when it comes forward out of the OMB process. So I don't have any other questions. So I want to thank you very much for your presentation. I do have a motion to receive your presentation, and we do have the correspondence from the region, or that report later on in the agenda, which we will receive and may take some action on. But now it has been moved by Councillor Kersey, seconded by Councillor King, that the information presented by the Ministry of Natural Resources regarding the proposed boundary changes to the Fonthill King Delta ANSI be received. Comments or questions on that? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you again, Mr. Thornton, for your presentation.
Thank you.
Maybe you could adjust the temperature. It's a little cool in here, so I've asked the clerk to maybe make it so that it's not as cool.
Oh, thanks, Vicky.
And Mr. Thornton, we do have a presentation, not this one, but the one following from Grand Fondo Niagara. And one of the jewels in the crown that they're going to be sharing with us is that cycling up Effingham Hill. So it's important features for cycling as well. I'm sure we'll hear about that from Mr. Hachi. And thank you very much. Ms. Spreet is here from the Niagara region, talking about adding POA fines to the tax roll. Thank you very much, Ms. Spreet, for being here at our council meeting to expand upon this, and I would ask you to proceed, please.
Good evening, Mayor Augustine, councillors, staff, and ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for the opportunity to come and speak with you this evening about adding fines to tax roll. going to skip ahead to my third slide here. There are a couple of slides out of order. So just to give you some background, in 2001, the province of Ontario, specifically the Ministry of the Attorney General, transferred responsibility to municipalities through a memorandum of understanding for the administration of the provincial offences courts. Niagara Region at the time received 52,000 cases with a value of in excess of $15 million, almost $16 million. And since 2001, we have been successful in collecting $3.4 million of the fines which were transferred to us from prior to 2001. Currently, we have approximately 57,560 delinquent cases. And the region operates the court as agent for all 13 area municipalities through an intermunicipal agreement. And the net revenue from POA is shared 50% to the region and 50% is shared amongst the other 12 area municipalities. Just to give you an example of Pelham's share for 2012, it was at 4.54%, which equated to $45,448. I'm just going to go back to my first slide. So what are provincial offenses? Mainly, people will know fines, offenses and fines that are more commonly known to the public as traffic fines, although they also include convictions under the Building Code, the Fire Protection and Prevention Act. You can see the laundry list listed there on the slide. And a number of provincial statutes like the Fish and Game Act, etc. Our court currently has approximately 42,000 active delinquent cases totaling just in excess of $36 million. When I say active, it doesn't include fines for which there are extensions that have been granted, fines that we've written off, for example, or fines that we may not be pursuing for collection, which could include in excess of 4,000 fines that are sort of pre-transfer bylaw type fines that we have on the books, and about 3,000 doubtful recoveries. They're mainly liquor license offenses and usually from offenders that prevent with mental health challenges. Our office, our collections office for the Provincial Offences Court is located at 3 Cross Street in Welland. And I can tell you that since 2001, we have recovered almost $23 million. So prior to 2003, we didn't divide revenue up, and so we have actually collected more than that. For the first few years of operating the court, the revenue was all lumped together. We currently enforce payment of fines by suspending things like suspending driver's license, sending out collection notices. We work with third-party collection agencies. We pursue civil enforcement, which includes writs of seizure and sale and notices of garnishment, bank accounts and wages. But despite all of these efforts, the number of our delinquent cases are on the rise. We're looking to maximize all of the types of enforcement tools that are at our disposal. And that's why I'm here tonight to talk to you about another enforcement tool that has been enabled through legislation more recently, which is adding fines to tax roll. So the Municipal Act was amended in 2009 to grant treasurers the authority to add defaulted provincial offences fines to the tax roll for any property if the fine is against all of the owners. So if an individual receives a fine and they own property jointly with another person, that fine cannot be added to tax roll. There are many advantages of adding the fine to tax roll. If the taxes are currently being paid by pre-authorized payments or by a mortgage company, the fine will usually automatically be paid. And once a municipality adds the fine to the tax roll, you'll also add a fee if that's within your bylaw, or you could amend your bylaw, but to add a fee, and you'll also add any interest that accumulates, which is more revenue for the municipality. We believe that the collection rate on delinquent fines will increase. That has been the experience with other jurisdictions. and there will be more net revenue to be shared by the municipalities in the region at year end. So how do we do this? How will this work? POA will file a writ and provide verified information on the delinquent fines to Town of Pelham staff. You will add the fine and fee to tax roll. If you currently send a notice wherever you add to tax roll, you'd then send that notice to the owner and or the mortgage company. We'd both monitor the accounts for payment. We believe that monthly monitoring will be sufficient. However, we can work with you to figure out what that looks like exactly. If the fine is paid at your office, you'd report the payment to us that the fine has been paid. You'd keep any fee and interest that has accumulated, and you'd remit the balance to us, which then that revenue would end up being shared at the end of the year. If the fine is paid at the POA court office, we would get a payout from you, fine and interest, etc. Collect that amount, send the fine and interest to you, and keep the balance, and it would be split at the end of the year as per the intermunicipal agreement. If you get any calls, if you were to get any calls from folks once it has been added to tax roll, we would just ask that you please divert those calls to our court office. We're quite happy to field all of those calls. Probably in the best position to do that. Just to give you some idea of how many properties this process could apply to, we've compiled some statistics for you as of December the 31st. Based on our experience, we decided to look at cases where the offender owes more than $500. So this chart shows the number of offenders that owe more than $500 and have a Niagara region address. We've broken the offenders down by municipality and then done some preliminary searches to determine how many offenders own property either solely or jointly. So for example, for Pelham, you can see that there are 77 offenders with fines over $500 totaling just over $500,000. 2 of those offenders own property solely for total value of almost $12,000. So as you can see, if all of the Niagara cases that we've already identified are sole owners, we would have the opportunity to collect in excess of $400,000 that's outstanding to the court. So within Niagara region, we have been, my colleague who's the supervisor of collections, Diane Chase, and I have been out contacting various municipal staff and or councils, and thus far we have, you'll note that with the 2 asterisks, there are either municipalities where we have signed agreements, where we have entered into agreements with municipalities, or municipalities intend to sign agreements. All of the municipalities have the agreements, and it's just a matter of reviewing them and considering. My colleague Diane Chase is actually presenting to Fort Erie Council tonight as I'm here presenting to you in Fonthill. The only jurisdiction that has asked us to hold until the fall is Welland. Apparently they're implementing a new tax conversion system, and that's quite a workload for them, and they want to revisit this again with us in the fall and start to take steps forward to move forward with this. So reception has been good across the region. This process has been implemented by several other municipalities since the legislation came to pass in 2009. We've done a little chart here for you because we're interested in what their success rates will be and wanted to get feedback from them. As you can see from these statistics, although this is fairly new, the recovery rate when adding to tax roll is very good and expected to be even higher the longer municipalities are engaged in this. By comparison, if you look at Brampton, although they are a single-tier municipality, they have a slightly larger population, but they've been using this tool since 2010. So essentially, this data is as of the end of December. So it was approximately at the 2-year point. They have experienced a 55% recovery rate, which they're very satisfied with. And we have to remember that these fines have been on the outstanding and delinquent for quite some time and weren't collectible before adding to tax roll, and they've been able to collect on them, so it's very good. In addition to being able to add fines to tax roll within our own municipality, OMTRA is currently piloting an intermunicipal project where 4 municipalities are adding to each other's tax roll. There was a presentation at their spring conference, and they actually are recommending that this pilot be expanded across the province. So, for example, if Ottawa, if someone received a fine in Ottawa but owns property in Belleville, Ottawa would add their fine to the Belleville tax roll, or vice versa. What this means in the future is that we may have the ability for Niagara fines to add to other municipal tax rolls, and our statistics are telling us that that would would benefit us, as there's approximately $7 million in fines that are owed by offenders who live outside of Niagara. So there's a huge opportunity to collect. In return, there may be occasions when you are asked to add fines to tax roll from other POA courts from outside of Niagara, but again, you would add a fee and collect any interest. So next steps, where do we go from here? We are seeking agreement from you to enter into an intermunicipal tax collection agreement. This agreement clarifies each of our roles and responsibilities and is based on a template that was developed and has been used by the intermunicipal pilot project group. Once that agreement is in place, we can begin sending the necessary information to staff so that fines can be added to your tax roll. We would do the searches and would send along a parcel registry. That would be work done at our end to make it easier for the municipality. Throughout this process, we will be working with you to develop and document best practices, ensure that we are using the most efficient processes for everyone. And our Niagara Region's IT staff are investigating ways to make this as efficient as possible as well. So we're already thinking of ways to use an interface based on a text file where information could be sent in the same format that you get impact data now. Any questions?
All right, thank you very much for your comprehensive presentation. Ms. Spreet, questions for Ms. Spreet? We do have a report later on in the agenda, and I think it's also articulated there. Councillor Kersey, did you have something? Yeah.
No, thank you.
Okay, I thought you moved your finger there, so, all right. Councillor Ribbiak?
Thank you, and again, just for clarity. So my understanding is that if we enter into this agreement, POA fines that would be added to our tax rolls, number one, would be added to those properties that are owned solely by the person who has the offense.
That's right.
If there's a joint ownership, even with a spouse, that won't be on. And what we would recover is a fee if we attached it, any interest that has accrued, since the date of the offense? So not since it was referred to us, but right from the outset?
As soon as you would get it, and hopefully the time, let's say we transfer something to you in July and you're adding it to tax roll, interest would start when you get it from the time until it's paid.
So July
Until
but not previous interest, just the interest from that point onward. And then the actual face value of the fine would then revert to the region, which would then split it with us, so we would have a portion of the actual face value of the fine as well.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Other questions? Thank you very much for your presentation. Appreciate that and the question.
Thanks for
It
your
has been
time.
moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Kersey, that the information presented by Joanne Spreet, Region of Niagara, regarding the adding Provincial Offences Act fines to the tax roll be received. Comments, questions? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Next is another presentation by Dean Hatchie from Grand Fondo, Niagara, 2013. Hopefully I didn't steal any thunder when I spoke earlier about it. Thank you.
Well, good evening, and thank you, Mayor Gustin, council, staff, fellow delegates, and guests. My name is Dean Hash. I'm with Grand Fondo Canada, and I appreciate the invitation, the opportunity to share some information about the upcoming Grand Fondo event that's happening in Niagara Falls on September the 14th. I'm going to focus primarily on the route because it really describes the journey or the adventure we're going to offer our guests as they pedal their way through some of the nicest parts of the Niagara region. including obviously the region of Pelham, and some of the features that fellow delegate was so eloquently speaking. I learned a lot about sort of that piece of geography and why it's so beautiful. A Gran Fondo is loosely defined as or translated from Italian means big ride. And we've been in the business of hosting Gran Fondos in Canada longer than anyone. We have a long and storied history that goes all the way back to 2010. So we've hosted the inaugural Gran Fondo Whistler, which is an epic ride that goes from downtown Vancouver up the Sea to Sky Highway to Whistler. And we're in our 4th year of operating that event. It's become known around the world. We host about 7,000 cyclists on a dedicated route, no cars, between downtown Vancouver over the Lionsgate Bridge up the Sea to Sky Highway to Whistler, and it has about an $11 million economic impact. We've taken a very slow weekend in Whistler and turned it into the second most profitable opportunity for them. So cycling is growing. We've taken that adventure, we moved it to Banff in Alberta. We now have Gran Fondo Whistler, Gran Fondo Banff, and the inaugural Gran Fondo Niagara Falls, which we've been working on for almost, well, actually over 2 years now. Okay. So it's the event is going to happen actually the weekend of September 14th. Our approach is kind of a festival atmosphere. So we're integrating all the best that Niagara has to offer, the wine, the region, the falls, into a 3-day festival. The actual ride's on September the 14th. Starts bright and early in the morning at 6:45 a.m. We're expecting about 3,000 cyclists to take in the inaugural event. It says the estimated last rider about 120 arriving at the finish line back down at the falls. I'm going to be sharing with you the route and be prepared to answer any questions about it. The distance is 127 kilometers, so we get cyclists from around the world that are bringing their bikes or renting bikes locally, whatever it might be, to enjoy this beautiful venue on a bicycle. The idea here is for one day, cyclists will get to experience the wonders of the Niagara region in a dedicated lane free of vehicles. That's what separates Gran Fondo Canada cycling events really from anybody else in North America. Our approach is to work, and that's why it's taken us a better part of 2 years, to work with within the regions and within the municipalities that are on our route to be able to provide that luxury for our cyclists. So the route at a high level looks like this. It starts and finishes down right at the falls, so that sort of balloon down at the falls. We've worked with the Niagara Parks Commission to provide both lanes of the Niagara Parkway really for the first time in history for cyclists to move through Niagara-on-the-Lake. We go across Lakeshore, along Lake Ontario, obviously, down Stewart Road, past Niagara College, up Taylor, and we're actually working, we're closing half of the Thorold Tunnel in order to get cyclists under the Welland Canal to make their way over to this side of the canal. And then we're along Beaver Dams to Kew and into the Pelham region, where we're featuring a loop around Short Hills and some of the best features and, quite frankly, the best cycling in Ontario that you have here. And I want to take this opportunity to congratulate you, Mayor Gustin, and the Active Transportation Group, and with the really unprecedented achievement of achieving silver status as a cycling-friendly community. It's a tremendous achievement and a tremendous testament to your support for cycling, not only in the province, but quite frankly in the country. I set a great example. So what we're in the process of doing right now is a detailed transportation management plan. It looks kind of like this. We've hired engineers. We're working with 3 police departments, the Niagara Parks Commission, a long list of stakeholders, which I'll show you on that plan, which we'll be publishing the first draft of the end of this month. That plan is as detailed as, it has 191 intersections. It's a very detailed timing matrix that shows when our first rider will get there, when our last rider will be passed, and with all the specific signage requirements and closure information and a level of detail that, quite frankly, we're very proud of. It's a very important aspect of our event. So a little bit closer to home, if we zoom in on this district, or this region, the route effectively is coming across the Kew, and it makes its way up to Pelham Road, if you look at the top of the map, and winds its way along. We turn onto Sawmill, and we make our way out to the near the Sawmill Golf Course. We make our way back to Effingham Street, and really, to Mayor Dave's point, to include the feature of the Effingham Hill Climb, where we'll be doing what we call a preem, which is a timed section. So each of the cyclists has a timing chip on their bike, and it'll be sort of one of those features that folks will look forward to train for all spring and summer, and then climb that hill as quickly as they can, so they can, you know, compare their stat with their buddy or their cycling club or their wife or whatever it might be. We do make a little jog up and around Lookout Point Golf Club. We touched 20, but basically we've got approval on is the two-way traffic will still be still be in play along 20. We'll be just taking the section closest to that very short line of businesses, including the Tim Hortons and a few others, and I'll talk to that and specifically what our plans are to engage that group. We then make our way back down towards Lookout Point and make our way through Holland Road, up Cataract, and rejoin to Kew. The impact between when we enter, if you will, Cataract and the Kew, and make our way back around to that ranges between 8 a.m. and about 11:15 a.m. on a Saturday morning. Okay, so that's what the primary thing we wanted to communicate to Council today. So from a community standpoint, our plans include community relations, and we have a plan to obviously engage all local residents. We've already approached Lookout Point Golf Course as an example. They have a major tournament happening that morning. Fortunately, it happens to be a shotgun tournament, so that we've approached the general manager there and agreed on a time that works for the golfers that fits within the window. So with our cyclists going by the golf course sort of over a 2-hour period and a shotgun tournament taking 5 hours, but obviously there's a way to maneuver both parties to make everybody happy. Along Highway 20, as mentioned, there's a handful of businesses there that will be impacted. We have a great plan to integrate them into the event and show benefit to each of those local businesses, some of which have already been approached. Our community outreach includes door-to-door. We have a team of 10 people that are going to be making that effort not only here in Pelham but all the way across our 127-kilometer route, which includes not only a flyer drop, events, route signage, and we even have a website that'll go up 2 months in advance of the event, which will be available obviously to anybody with very detailed information on impacts with respect to the event. We have quite a substantially large committee, as you can imagine, with 3 police departments, the number of jurisdictions. One of the elements of it is our event communication center I want to share with you. It includes stakeholders from EMS, fire, police, industry, transportation. We have representation that looks like an ECC captain, lead, coordinators, etc. And we structure them really around 4 pillars: the start, the course, rest stops, and the finish. This is sort of our empirical 4-year experience being brought to bear here, if you will. It's rather new, but we're quite proud of the way we approach it. We've received awards in British Columbia and Alberta for our approach to not only planning for but executing our events. So that's a pretty blank slide that says next steps, but effectively what we have with Pelham's achieving cycling-friendly community status, we've had lots of great dialogue with certain members of council as well as your director of recreation with respect to some ideas around the festival aspect of it and perhaps doing some things here to celebrate cycling on that weekend. So some of those details are still work in progress, but they could include elements, something called a family fundo, which is a kids ride on a Friday night. Opportunity to get the community out, get kids on bicycles, work with our partner Share the Road, which is a not-for-profit advocacy group here in Ontario, and bring kids together, put them out on their bikes, talk about cycling safety, hand signals, helmet safety, those sorts of things. We've been doing family fundos at our events ever since their inception. They're extremely popular, and we'd be honored to host one here in Fonthill and Pelham. Any questions?
Thank you very much for your presentation. Questions from members of council? Can you just, one of the things that Dean, I met with you before along with staff and Councillor Kersey, you outlined what they do in Squamish and how that community has embraced it. Can you just give us a couple of seconds on that, please?
Thank you for the question. Yeah, the years leading up to the inaugural Grand Fondo Whistler in 2010 was really an effort of working with The Minister of Transportation at the time in British Columbia that was really focused on the improvements to the Sea to Sky Highway to support the Vanok and Winter Olympics. So there's a lot of improvements going on. My colleague and our president, Kevin Thompson, approached the then Minister Falcon and said, why don't we focus on a legacy event that takes advantage of that highway and give cyclists 1 day a year to ride that route up to Whistler. So thankfully he got on side. Long story short, one of the biggest impacts was the city of Squamish, which is about halfway in our 124-kilometer route. The city of Squamish, quite a populous area. One main road cuts right through it. It's called the Sea to Sky Highway. And we were asking to close it for a better part of 4.5, 5 hours. Right? So obviously quite a challenging ask of council in that first year. It took 18 months. And that was the last approval that we acquired in order to get the opportunity to do this. It was kind of a trial 1 year, and everybody was saying, we'll give it the 1 year, but don't even ask next year. What basically happened was it turned into a very much a celebration of cycling, and Squamish touts itself as the training capital of Canada now because of all the cyclists that go from Vancouver to Squamish all year round, training the first half of the Grand Fondo route. So they measure cycling trips, there's visits to cafes, the local bike shops are tripled in size, so they become a cycling culture. Second year, they said, what else can we do, to embrace this? So we came up with an idea to do something called a Medio Fondo, which is a fancy way of saying a half Fondo. And it was an opportunity for folks that weren't quite ready to do the full 124 kilometers. Let's do a 60-kilometer ride from Squamish to Whistler. Just happens to be the part where you climb the whole way, but the reality is it's become a very important feature of our Whistler event. So every year now, for the third year this year, we host the Medio Fondo in Squamish. The concept we've been talking about, perhaps, if I could, is in future years to host a Medio Fondo here. It gives an opportunity for cyclists to enjoy the second half of the route and come and join the party down at Niagara Falls. With the opportunity for folks to be much more inclusive, quite frankly, for cyclists that are just getting into the sport. So we were hopeful that we would be able to do it in the first year, and I think we got relatively close. But reality is, I think baby steps. We want to make sure we execute the plan as it's taking shape, and we'll publish at the end of the month. And then with an eye on a very successful event, obviously, but in year 2, the opportunity to be in front of you again to get approval for a Medio Fondo in Fonthill.
Thank you very much for outlining that. I
That was a
appreciate
long
that, and we
answer.
look forward to that, and we look forward to a successful event. I know staff are working with you, both our Director of Wellness, Culture, and Recreation, but also our Fire Chief. It does impact one of our fire halls, and it'll require perhaps some pre-planning and some changes there, should there be a requirement. So I know the Fire Chief will be working with you as well. Thank you very much for your presentation. Look forward to it. I don't think there's any other questions from council. So I do have a motion to receive, and it has been moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Kersey, that the information presented by Dean Hatchie regarding the Grand Fondo Niagara Falls event be received. Comments or questions? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. We look forward to that event and look forward to staff giving us more information as that comes forward. Thank you again for your presentation, and for others that are here to support you in your presentation as well. Thank you. I'm not sure that we have on our agenda a representative from the Greater Niagara Chamber of Commerce. Oh, there he is. Didn't see you there. Mr. Senzik, thank you for joining us. All right. So we were just about to go. The clerk is here to assist you to change presentations.
Start the video first. Video's here.
So before I go into the presentation, we'll just take you through a video that 180 Marketing and High Concept Designs put forward to support the campaign that you can also see on the One Less Strip page.
Hi, I'm Joe Fratelli, a small business owner here in Niagara. Hi, I'm Walter Senzik with the Greater Niagara Chamber of Commerce. Hi, I'm Paul Poole, manager of retail operations for 80 spaces in Niagara.
Hi, I'm Jessica Friesen, Vice President of Dale's Gas Bars.
Growing up in Niagara, it's always been so easy to just pop across the river and maybe pick up a few items and get some gas at the same time. We really never gave it a second thought, but maybe now's the time that we need to give it a second thought. Let's think about the impact on the community. Last year, the state of New York gained $400 million in new sales tax revenues from out-of-state shoppers coming from Ontario. These dollars could be
be used for our healthcare system, our education system. In fact, that amount could build a new hospital in South Niagara. And it's also costing us jobs in our community.
Last summer, Niagara's youth unemployment rate was an incredible 15%, one of the highest in the province. This was due to the reduction of sales staff as store owners tried to compete with those lost sales to the U.S. This put much more pressure on our youth as they tried to find employment opportunities to fund college or university.
Lost revenue in our community means fewer dollars for social programs and charitable organizations. Niagara retailers generously give back to the community. However, it's becoming increasingly more difficult to do so.
So you can see spending our dollars across the border does have an impact on our community.
One Less Trip is a campaign to get people to pledge to make one last trip to the U.S. to shop.
By taking the pledge, you're saying that you support local retailers, and you're joining a growing list of individuals that want to make a positive difference in Niagara.
So please join us and others in taking the pledge at onelesstrip.ca.
Or like us on Facebook. Yes, One Less Trip means more for Niagara.
So that's the video that really kicked off the One Less Trip campaign, and that's what we're here to talk about today, however so briefly. And Mayor Augustine, town councillors, thank you very much for allowing us to speak. And I'm joined by Kathy Burko-Bossi, who is also a Pelham business and a member of the GNCC, who is also very active in the One Less Trip campaign and supporting it and using social media to get it out there. So the video really gave you an overview of what we're trying to accomplish and the importance of the One Less Trip. And so we're here to talk to you tonight just about this issue and ask for your support in that you would take the pledge as councillors, but also your support as a city council to support the initiative. We're not asking for any monetary dollars. We're just asking for your consideration to support the campaign. And it was a partnership that came about through 180 Marketing and High Concept Designs. 180 is a Niagara-based graphic design company. High Concept Designs from Port Colborne. And we met as a group to support the retail sector here in Niagara. And we came up with a campaign that is not about saying to those in Niagara not to go across the border. We value our partnership with our national neighbors. It's about providing information through the online portal about what we can do to help support our local economy and help to keep some dollars in our community, because as the video demonstrated, we are facing some challenges, whether it be youth unemployment, whether it be a struggling economy with our retailers. And the campaign itself is looking to reconnect Niagara consumers with local retailers, building awareness about what they do in our community, how they provide jobs, how they partner with local community organizations, how they generate dollars back into our economy. And it's really a simple concept. And when you look at the average number of trips that people take, and this comes from the Conference Board of Canada, 4 cross-border trips per year, spending approximately $72 per trip. And when you see the number of cars that are going across our Niagara border crossings, in 2012, it was over 7 million vehicles crossed those border crossings in Niagara alone. And that contributes to having a downturn in our retail sector and having a challenge for local young people who are pursuing post-secondary education to get part-time jobs, which has a burden on families as they try to cover the cost of college and university. So when you look at why does it matter? It matters because of the impact that it has on the local economy. And I'm just going to the next slide. So when we looked at what Erie County had said in the Buffalo News last year, Buffalo News, was that they had a surplus, $26 million surplus, and a record $401 million of sales tax. And it was generated largely by the increase in volume of Canadian shoppers going into the United States, and specifically from southern Ontario. So that's a big economic gain for them, and it's a loss for us. So when you look at the sales tax that's taken out of our community, when you look at the till sales that's taken out of our community, it translates into pressures on our local retailers. And it's not just the small local retailers. We have the support of Canadian Tires across Niagara in this campaign now. We have the support of the Penn Center, of the Seaway Mall, and they see it from their clients. The Canadian Tire see it. The genesis for this came from the Fort Erie Chamber of Commerce when we were meeting with them. Patty, who is the franchisee owner for Canadian Tire, this was the worst, last June was the worst June that they've had on record, and it's attributed to the loss of sales going across the border. The Walmart in Fort Erie is another one that's struggling to even keep its doors open because of the loss of sales. So we're doing our part through the One Less Trip to at least draw attention to the impact that cross-border shopping has in our community. Again, this is not about saying don't go across the border. It's about providing information. So when you go to the website, onelesstrip.ca, it takes you through a infographic that talks about community impact, talks about environmental impact, talks about the impact for families, talks about the charitable impacts. And so it's just providing the information in a way that encourages people to take a pledge. So at the end of it, we ask the viewers to take a pledge to shop one less time. And so one less time on an average of 4 trips a year is $126 million that can be kept cycling into our local economy. And that's a lot of dollars that I'm sure we could use in our communities. And so I know Kathy with mypelham.ca, they've been very supportive on their website, and we're working, today is actually I'm presenting in front of your group, we're presenting in front of Fort Erie today. What we're doing is ramping up to Canada Day. So Sun Media, Niagara This Week, and Astral, they've donated collectively $150,000 in marketing for the campaign, and they're actually doing promotional campaigning up to Canada Day as a means of getting people to take the pledge, but also have a further understanding of it. So we're meeting with the local councils, regional council on Thursday as well, to get their support and say that as a council you support the One Less Trip, and you'll be ambassadors in your community because you are community leaders here in Pelham, and it's important for them, people in your community, to see you saying, I will make the pledge. And probably you don't go shopping over there. If you're the mayor of Pelham, you keep all your dollars here in the community. And what we do is they just pass that on, say, hey, I don't shop, but I will cover like one of those carbon dollars. I'll pass it on, and you can go shop over there. But it's not something that it's not about being negative. It's about being positive, and it's about keeping the dollars here in a way that is through education. So with that, what we're asking for is simply an endorsement, a support of this, and with that we'll be able to put the Town of Pelham's logo on the One Less Trip website and be able to say that we have the support of the Town of Pelham as well. So if there's any questions, feel free to take them and go from there.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sendzik. Appreciate your presentation. Questions for Mr. Sendzik? Very comprehensive. Councillor Clark, do you have a question?
Not a question, no.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you. Are we ready for a motion here? So currently I have a motion. Thank you very much, Mr. Sendzik. Moved by, sorry?
Can I make a comment? Or does it have to be a question?
I'll do it as soon as we get the
Okay,
motion on the
sorry.
floor. You can make
Thank
a
you.
comment. How's that sound?
Perfect.
So it's been moved by Councillor Kersey, second by Councillor King, that the information presented in the delegation by the Greater Niagara Chamber of Commerce regarding One Less Trip campaign be received. Councillor Clark.
I can make my comment?
Yes, you can.
Okay. No, I'm glad to see this. I've been a supporter of shopping locally for a long time, and it's nice to see that this will be something that I'm hoping will support, and that if other municipalities support, every bit will help. I have 2 young children that, well, they're not so young anymore, but were affected by finding, they both left the area because they can't find work here. So anything that will help that and help the local businesses, I think we should get on board with.
Thank you very much. Councillor, to that, the motion just is to receive, so if you want to add more to that, I'd be open to an amendment. Councillor Kersey?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move an amendment that not only do we receive the information, but we forward the presentation to both the Pelham Business Association executive as well as the Pelham Chamber of Commerce, and ask them for their endorsement and their distribution through their network to all of their members. Okay, so receive it and forward it to them. Yes. And ask for their endorsement. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Clark, discussion to that? Councillor Durley?
Could it be included that we as a council will endorse that as well?
Councillor?
Happy to do that.
Yeah, I think that's, that would be appropriate for asking others to endorse. We should endorse as well. So we'll take that as a friendly amendment, I guess, to Councillor Kersey's amendment. Further discussion to that? So the amendment is that Town of Pelham receive and endorse the One Less Trip campaign as presented, and also circulate it to the Pelham Business Association Executive and to the Welland Pelham Chamber of Commerce. I'm going to call the question on the amendment. All those in favor? Any opposed? That amendment carries. And now to the main motion as amended. Any further discussion? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried unanimously. Thank you very much for your presentation, and we have endorsed it. Staff will be in contact with you and vice versa to get the logo and thing negotiated. So thank you very much. Appreciate your presentation. And now we have one more presentation. It's from Regional Councillor Beatty, who will also see that presentation, as I will, on Thursday from Mr. Senzik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council and staff. First of all, my regrets. The last couple of meetings I've been rather overwhelmed by. Thank you for the Crowds Reunion, which was a great success, and I thank the town staff for their support for that event. And at the last report, it was the case I was in FCM in Vancouver. Not only as a delegate, but they're shadowing. I'm going to be sharing the study tours when they come to Niagara here next year, bringing, we hope, 2,000 to 3,000 people to Niagara. So it's nice to be back. This is with regard to the standing committee meetings that were held on June 11th and 12th, and it's the matter that will be before council on this Thursday evening. For corporate services, we approved the initiation of the 2013 capital budget for public works in excess of $5.5 million. We received a report on the 2013 debenture issue and authorized the negotiation of debentures not to exceed $35 million for the region as well as certain local municipalities. And received two reports on encroachment agreements. There were two different properties in Grimsby where patios and railings were located on regional property. For Integrated Community Planning Committee, we received a presentation on an overview of Regional Policy Plan Amendment Number 1 and received comments at a statutory public meeting, and then subsequently approved Regional Policy Plan Amendment Number 1 for the urban boundary adjustments for Fonthill, Town of Pelham, and deferring the proposed changes for 2003 Walnut Road to allow for further consultation. This was very much a Pelham meeting, by the way. It was a case where I think we had more than half the agenda. Received a presentation and held a statutory public meeting regarding an application to amend the regional policy plan to permit a golf course, not a golf course, but a golf practice facility at Sawmill Golf Course, Town of Pelham, referring matters for the preparation of a final report. We received a report and approved a records retention bylaw revision and a report regarding a policy initiation for the Regional Policy Plan Amendment 2 for the working area modifications in the City of St. Catharines. Received a report on the regional role and the Niagara Sport Commission bid for the 2014 Ontario Summer Games, with support contingent on the drafting of an agreement that will outline the limits of the region's financial and legal exposure. Received a report on the proposed revisions, as you did here tonight, to the Fonthill Cane Delta. Recommended that the Ministry of Natural Resources provide rationale for not maintaining or enhancing the ANSI. It's not maintaining and enhancing. They have, in fact, enhanced some portions, but it's at the expense of other portions being reduced. And our overall position for the region is that we looked at Dr. Menzies' view that it should be looked at in its totality, not in segmented portions. Public Health and Social Services, forgot the last one. They received a report on Bill 6, Great Lakes Protection Act, and endorsed the letter that was sent to the Minister of the Environment. For Public Health and Social Services Committee, received a presentation, a very interesting presentation and very enlightening regarding the programs and services available at Hotel du Shaver Hospital. Received an amended report on the No Time to Wait, the Healthy Kids Panel report. Directed our Board of Health Chair to write a letter supporting the 3 pillars of health outlined in that document. Received and approved the 2012 the 2012 Public Health Audited Financial Schedules, and likewise for the 2012 Community Services Audit and Reviewed Financial Schedule. Public Works Committee, there's been a lot of work been done in the last couple of years, 3 years I think in total, in terms of trying to streamline the whole process, in terms of development process, trying to speed up the process, try to make it more seamless, transparent, and there's a presentation given to Public Works on the lean process for development charges administration. And it's my hope that at some point in time, we have talked, by the way, of having an Amos-style Niagara event, and some of these features in terms of have been going on to try and streamline or harmonize activities across the region, I think would be important workshops for all councillors to attend, both local and regional. So we're still working on that sometime later this year. received a noise abatement petition regarding Glenridge Avenue and St. Catharines, and then approved an amended report directing staff on a full 50% cost sharing with the residents to be charged to engage a consulting firm to acquire a quote for the design of the noise abatement wall. Received a report on the 2012 reserve water and wastewater treatment capacities and servicing strategy for Niagara-on-the-Lake Water and Wastewater Treatment Plant, and also a report, and we authorized an agreement for roadworks for the outlet collection. That's the new massive outlet mall, going to be the largest in Canada, down by White Oaks, on the corner of Taylor Road and Glendale Avenue, Niagara-on-the-Lake. And that may also help some of the one fewer stops, because we'll have the broad range of goods and services here in Canada on as I say, the largest scale of any outlet mall in Canada being proposed with that development. Received a report and authorized traffic signal installation at the Camisa Plaza in Niagara Falls and Thurlow Stone Road. Regional Council, as mentioned, meets this Thursday at 6:30 in open session, followed by a closed session. And I do want to mention that one of the meetings where I was not present, I did follow a portion of it on Kojiko and the discussion of the region's examination of water and wastewater. And I've had a conversation, a meeting later this week with the mayor, and asking to meet with staff in terms of being fully informed of what the Pelham view is in terms of the points being made in that report. I think it's good to, for me, first of all, to get through. I don't sit on that committee. I'm going to have the report and go through it in full, but also want the input of your staff as well as yourselves as councillors. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. And I think that meeting that you're alluding to is coming up on the 27th of June, and I'm sure that staff would be very pleased to sit down with you. The treasurer can go through. There is a report to council and some correspondence, which I think will be on the regional council agenda to receive.
I should add that your communication to the region was received. I generally report to you the actions that were considered for action. I don't go through the long list of reports that are received for information, but your letter of expression of concern was received and referred to that business planning session.
That's right. So thank you very much. We look forward to that. Questions for Councillor Beatty on his report? I'm just going to highlight some items here that was interesting to see the patio policy and the railings that were in the town of Grimsby, and I did talk about the patio policy that we have here. Surprising to see that regional council was actually being asked to approve each. There were two on the agenda, and I indicated that we had delegated that authority given that they met certain criteria. So that may be asked for from Pelham staff. The regional policy amendment, I think I sent an email to council about this regarding the boundary changes. We saw that as simply an exercise to put the lines in the right spots to where they perhaps should have been. And there was a resident from Pelham that was concerned about the impacts on their property, and so we deferred that piece but approved the other piece and asked regional staff to sit down with them and talk about that line. Sawmill Golf Course, I've since spoken to staff and indicated that we actually have to also look at this as part of an OPA official plan amendment in Pelham. So there may well be a planning meeting coming up in the coming month. And then the ANSI, I think, which is you alluded to earlier. So just wanted to give you those updates. It did feel like planning at Pelham Day on Wednesday when we were in committee. Thank you. Any further questions for Councillor Beatty? And finally, I do want to say congratulations. Great work on the Croiseriing and just outstanding success. I was able to attend part of that and very pleased to do so, and just sounded like a wonderful time and very, very successful. So please pass along congratulations to your co-chair and the other members of the committee.
Excellent team that we had. A lot of skill sets provided by different people made the whole thing work. But the stress level has gone down by about 50%. That it's all over.
Very good. Thank you so much, Councillor.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it. Now to adoption of minutes. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Kersey. The following minutes be adopted as printed, circulated, and read. Special meeting of council held on June 3rd, 2013, and the regular meeting of council held on June 3rd, 2013. Errors or omissions? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. The next is consent agenda items to be considered in block. Are there any items that members of council would like to lift for separate consideration? I would ask that we lift 1137, which is the report, Niagara Region report ICP 62 regarding the Fawn Hill Delta, if we can lift that report. So there being no others items, it's been moved by Councillor Kersey, second by Councillor Ribbiak, that the following consent agenda items be received and approved. Resolutions of the Committee of the Whole from our meeting on June 3rd, 2013, and the minutes of that meeting. The third item is information correspondence items as follows. The first, a memo regarding the Town of Pelham Official Plan OMB appeals pre-hearing conference, which was held last week. The second is a thank you card from the Leichenberger family. The third, Summerfest Committee minutes for information. The fourth, Ministry of Energy regarding renewable energy development. The fifth, City of Port Colborne resolution regarding respecting older worker employment supports. The sixth, Niagara Region correspondence for information. There are several items for information. And the final item is the Corporate Services Information Report regarding the 2013 repayment limit for the town. Do members of council want to comment, ask questions about any of those items? There was one item regarding the renewable energy development. The council did have that discussion around the table. The concept, I think it was Councillor Durley that raised it, of willing host. It's good to see that the provincial government is taking that. I don't think we ever got that specific resolution. Staff are working on a resolution, recommended resolution to us. But it's good to see that the provincial government is acting in that regard. Any other items? Councillors are flipping through their pages right now of all the items. Are you ready for the question? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. The next item is the Niagara Regional Report, ICP 62. I was hopeful that, and if you need me to, I don't know that I need to leave the chair on this, but when I will, but I was hopeful that perhaps we could have a discussion about this and give some sort of indication to the province regarding the presentation that we received and also this council's feeling on the matter, thoughts on the matter. As Councillor Beatty indicated, that report was supported and endorsed at Regional Council, or at Regional Committee, and it will go to Regional Council this Thursday. And so I asked that Council, we can discuss it and see if there's a mood to support and endorse that report. Councillor Kersey?
Mr. Mayor, you look longingly at me, so I will make that motion that we will support and endorse the.
I don't know if I would have used that word, but that's wear it, right? You saw me wallowing there, did you? Thank you very much, Councillor. Is there a seconder for that supporting and endorsing that? Councillor King. Thank you. Discussion on the matter. It's pretty clear in terms of the way it's laid out. Councillor Ribbiak?
Yeah, just for understanding, the report that was included, the Regional Niagara report, includes an additional block of land, I guess, that was recommended by Dr. Menzies as also being an integral and important part of Fonthill Came, and I don't think any of us are arguing that isn't in fact the case. However, what we heard earlier today was that the recommendation being made by the MNR is in fact an expansion on their previous iterations of that plan, and so have taken into account some of Dr. Menzies' work, and have rationalized that some of the stuff that wasn't included is no longer included because the property has been, or the land has been so degraded by development of one form or another to this point that it's not worth keeping. I'm sure that a sharper pencil would define more accurately those pieces that have not yet been degraded and ought to be included, and I guess that's the value of the Dr. Menzies edition. I think we ought to support that, and I think quite clearly we are. But there's going to be room, I guess, as time goes by, to sharpen that line more and more and more and more. And I suppose at some point there ought to be a definitive end to that discussion. And I suppose we ought to give some thought at some point in some manner to kind of determining what our last position is, what our final drop-dead position is, if we have one, with regard to what the CAME protected area, what the ANSI ought to look like. I like the Dr. Menzies line. It'd be nice to finish the discussion there, but I don't think we will be finished there.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kersey?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think perhaps the most important piece of information we received today was, and the most important part of the ANSI that's being protected within these boundaries is the transect that runs north-south along Effingham Road. And it certainly impacts some of the things that we know are coming down the pipe. So, Mr. Mayor, could I add a referral to staff that they bring back a report with respect to the impact of the OP and policies that come into play, and also what the provincial policy statement has to say on expansion of pits into ANSI areas, and how we as a municipality could go about protecting or creating policies that would provide some protection for that unique geological feature.
Okay, thank you. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Ribiak? To that, any further? Councillor, anything further? Councillor Durley?
Mr. Mayor, I have some concerns that it's under appeal at the OMB, and I think that a lot of this is going to be argued at the OMB level, and perhaps a report now would be a bit premature, because the OMB decision may certainly contradict what we feel is what we want, and so on and so forth. So perhaps to be a little patient on that, because in fact the almighty OMB may make some statements that we either agree with or don't agree with, but so what we feel now may be changed by the direction that the decision comes down for. So just offering that as a word of caution. If we were to do this now, it may be time wasted, because a lot of what we may come up with could be redundant in the case of a decision that goes against it.
Councillor, I hear what you're saying. I'm not sure that, I don't know if you want to respond, Councillor. I think this is, I'll ask the question this way. Does your motion depend on what's going on at the OMB and the appeals, or this is a bit broader than that, and then maybe I'll have the clerk in a moment reread the motion back?
Well, I essentially, Mr. Mayor, what I was looking for was a clearer understanding of perhaps what our current official plan and our adopted but not yet ratified official plan say in relation to the protection of the ANSI, but also what the provincial policy statement has to say about it, so that we have a clear understanding of the issues that are in fact before the OMB. Not necessarily thinking that we would enact anything at the present moment, but to provide some background information to all of us, so that we're very clear on where we stand and what we might do to protect that ANSI.
Okay, thank you. And Madam Clerk, is that captured in the motion? What do we have here for the motion? The amendment?
Certainly. The motion was by Councillor Kersey, seconded by Councillor Ribiak, that the matter be referred to staff and bring back a report regarding the impact of the official plan and other policies and the provincial policy statement to determine their impact on the expansion of the pits into the ANSI, and how we as a municipality can create policies to protect this unique geological feature.
Thank you. Were you referring the endorsement to staff, or I thought it was an
No,
amendment that you were
it was
adding?
a separate
this.
piece.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So it's not a referral of the matter, it's staff direction in essence.
Right.
Based on this report.
So maybe it would be clearer if we divide it and deal with the endorsement first, and then the referral for a report regarding the various acts that impact that property, or that ANSI as a separate issue.
Area,
so that, the transect area, so that it's very clear then. Sorry, Madam Clerk.
Yeah, I saw it as an amendment to say, when the councillor said refer to staff, I think it was, this report's before us, refer it, but support and endorse, but also refer it to staff and come back with a report with more information.
Oh, yes.
but that they
This was the
support and-
amendment.
Yeah.
Yes,
Oh,
this
okay,
was the
we're clear.
amendment only.
Okay.
I'm
so-
sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. And so I think we've captured it,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Others?
And that the
To the amendment, to the staff direction? Okay, I'm going to call the question. You ready for that amendment? All those in favor? Any opposed? That amendment is carried. And now to the main motion as amended, which includes the supporting and endorsing the Regent's position as outlined in the report, and also asking for more information from staff as outlined by Councillor Kersey and Ribbiak. Any further discussion? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried as well. Thank you. I need to sign this. We look forward to that report coming back to us. Thank you. Thank you, Council, for taking my my look over at you, as you called it, looking longingly at you. So thank you for that.
That longing look got to me, Mr. Mayor.
Next, I do note that Councillor Kersey did have a conflict with this. The next item has been moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Durley, that the request from Massimo's Pizza and Subs Limited, dated June 1st, 2013, regarding Summerfest Festival licensing be received, and that the request to extend their current liquor license on July 19th and 20th, 2013, from 11 a.m. to midnight for the Pelham Summerfest event be approved in accordance with the sketch appended. Discussion? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. We need a seconder for this one. The correspondence from the Pelham Active Transportation Committee dated May 31st, 2013 be received and referred to staff for a report. Councillor Ribbiak has moved it. Councillor King will second it. Any discussion? Certainly thank the members of the Active Transportation Committee for their feedback. Mr. CAO, what's the, this is regarding the Peace Park concept plan. What's the way forward on the concept plan? Or is that perhaps to Ms. Van Raven's way? Who's handling that?
Well, the Peace Park plan is definitely coming together. It's, I think, a little bit further ahead than the downtown master plan. But the overall strategy is to present the downtown master plan with the Peace Park plan as a chapter in that larger umbrella. We're expecting that to be hopefully wrapped up in the next couple of months or so.
Okay, so we'll look forward to that in the fall. In
That's-
time for
that's
budget,
the
I think was the
that's the
recommendation.
timing, yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. Others? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. It has been moved by Councillor King, seconded by Councillor Ribbiak, that the correspondence dated May 30th, 2013 from Ridgeville Renovations, Inc., indicating their desire to donate a stone monument in Inukshuk to the town of Pelham be received, and that the staff be directed to work with Ridgeville Renovations, Inc. to determine an appropriate location for the monument in accordance with the master plan, municipal master plan objectives. I would presume that's the master plan we have with our parks, and that staff report back to council on the outcome. Certainly very generous of this group. Any discussion? It's a new business in town and wanting to showcase what they can do, and certainly being generous about it. I think the letter makes reference to potential for Peace Park or Marlene Stewart Street Park with the skate park, etc. So look forward to hearing more about that. Other members? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. And I would ask that certainly staff pass on our appreciation to the group for their donation. The next item has been moved by Councillor Durley, seconded by Councillor Kersey. The correspondence from the Royal Canadian Legion, Branch 613, requesting a temporary extension to their licensed patio area for the use of a fenced-off area southeast of the existing patio for their annual appreciation barbecue be received and approved, and the clerk be directed to provide a letter of approval to the Legion for inclusion with their Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario licensing extension application. Discussion? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. The next item has been moved by Councillor Ribbiak, seconded by Councillor Durley. That council receive the issue sheet regarding the 2013 tax rate bylaw modification.
Actually, we need to go back on the agenda, Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry. We need the mayor's report now.
Oh, there we are. Perfect. Thank you very much. You were reluctant to hand it to me, and so now we do have reports from members of council. Apologies for that. I do have two reports. The first is a report regarding the annual Firefighters Memorial Service, which was held on June 9th, 2013. This was a memorial service that Councillor Durley and I attended on behalf of council and the community. That's organized each year by the Fonthill Volunteer Firefighters Association. It's a very moving service. The service takes place at the cenotaph at the cemetery here in Fonthill. And we gather to give thanks and to remember those members of the Pelham Fire Service, specifically of the Fonthill Volunteer Firefighter Association, that have passed away. And we remember them for their service, for their dedication, for their generosity, and for their sacrifice to the town. We remember how they train each week, and all members of our fire service train weekly to ensure that they're prepared should any emergency arrive, and that impact that has on families as well. It was a very moving service. It always is. They read off the names of those that have passed away through the years, and that part is moving as well. But I think it was exceptionally moving because there was a member who was in active duty who had passed away. Council will recall Brian Page. And Brian's widow Jennifer was there, and daughter Lindsay and members of their family were there. And the members of the fire service presented her with a special token of remembrance, and gave them a ride on the fire truck as well. And it was a very, very moving service. Council will recall as well, when Councillor Durley was there last year, he suggested that the council have as part of the service a wreath, and we had the pleasure of and honor of presenting that wreath at the memorial this year. So thank you, Councillor, for that recommendation and for assisting in that as well. And thank you as well to the members of the fire service for the memorial. It is very moving, very important, and certainly important time to remember those that have left a lasting legacy to our community. The next item is regarding the upcoming visit. We received some good news a couple of weeks ago. I received a call in my office from the Lieutenant Governor's Office of Ontario. I had written in a Christmas card on behalf of council and the community that if the Lieutenant Governor ever found himself in Niagara, that we would certainly welcome him to our community to showcase some of our fully accessible playgrounds. Council may know that the Lieutenant Governor does have mobility challenges. He has been the victim of polio and is quite keen on accessibility issues. And so his office called and said he wanted to take us up on that kind offer. So this Friday, Council and I, along with members of the Accessibility Advisory Committee and the Pelham, the fabulous Fenwick Lions, will be welcoming the Lieutenant Governor of Ontario, the Honourable David C. Onley, to Centennial Park at 4 p.m. from 4 till 5. It is one of Pelham's, as Council knows, one of Pelham's fully accessible playgrounds, and it will be a time to meet and greet with his honor. Members of the Cadet Corps will also be present. We're still finalizing some of the details, and I think we have a meeting tomorrow. But we certainly, I think the Lieutenant Governor's office has indicated they don't necessarily want all the pomp and circumstance, but they are certainly pleased to meet with members of council and members of the Accessibility Committee and the entire community. He wants to see the entire community and see how our playgrounds are used through the town. So again, that's coming up this Friday from 4 till 5. I will be speaking about how the federal and provincial government has assisted us with the funding and how we accelerated our funding of our programs. We had a 14-year plan for replacing playgrounds, and because of the funding from upper levels of government, we were able to accelerate that and move that forward. And as well, as a result of the fully accessible playgrounds, we did win in 2011 another award that we had an award to talk about tonight. There was one from Parks and Recreation Ontario called Excellence in Design Award for all of our parks. And so certainly I'll be mentioning that to his honor. Again, this is open to the entire community, and please greet the Lieutenant Governor to our community on Friday, this coming Friday, from 4 till 5 at Centennial Park on Church Street. Those are my reports, members of council. And Councillor Kersey has 3 reports as well.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's with pleasure that I bring a report to council regarding activity at the Pelham Library. It's been several months since I've reported, so there are a few things that I'd like to draw to council's attention. As you are probably aware, the first 3 phases of the library study are complete or very near complete. The 4th phase, the operational review, has commenced, and it is expected that it will be completed by the end of July or early August, with a final report brought back to council and the library board in early September. The library has continued over these past few months to deliver excellent service to the public, and I must comment that they have a committed and resourceful staff. Interestingly, a conventional circulation, as we think of it, you know, a book here and a book there, in the library has maintained fairly steady year over year. But when one looks at the electronic circulation items that are taking place at the library, they have grown astronomically. And perhaps this points a trend at what we're going to see in library services in the near future and for years to come. I want council to understand that the library board has been working very hard to review library expenses, to put in financial controls that are necessary to ensure financial health and responsibility going forward. They are at this time on track to meet the 2013 amended budget. However, the deficit remains a concern, and will most likely have to be addressed over a number of years. Replacement of capital items is also a concern that the board is wrestling with at the present time, as they face over the next number of years replacement of several of their IT resources. Council will be pleased to note that the 2 newest members of the board of the library have brought great strength to the board, both in the areas of personnel and also financial management. Also, recently, the Personnel Committee has begun to conduct interviews for a new deputy CEO. At the present time, no one has been chosen. At least no recommendation has been brought to the board to date, and it's hoped that a new replacement will be found that would be able to start by September. The library has asked me to bring forward to council that if and when council proceeds with the recommendation that's contained within the cultural master plan to form a cultural roundtable or steering committee, that they would very much like to be involved in that committee. And as council's aware, the library has functioned as a hub of culture in this community for a good long time, and I think consideration should be given to their inclusion. In your mailboxes this past week, Council, you've received the annual report for 2012 from the Pelham Library, as well as the strategic plan. The strategic plan has been adopted for at least a year. It's only now that it was actually published in its final form, but the board has been trying to live up to the aspirations that are expressed in that document. So both those documents give you a clear understanding of the aspirations of the library and of the library board and the accomplishments to date. I think it's very important that we express a congratulations and a thank you to the library board and the library staff. They're working under some difficult fiscal constraints at this moment. They've all bitten the bullet and taken the hard lifting and are doing their best to try and curtail spending and maintain an efficient management of their finances. That concludes my library report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
The second report that I'd like to bring to council is a report from the Pelham Business Association. I've attended a number of PBA meetings since my last report, and I'd like to report to council that the PBA continues to grow in both numbers and fiscal strength. They are a group of committed entrepreneurs and business people who are not only committed to the economic strength of their businesses, but also to the economic health of Pelham. They've continued to be engaged in the various stakeholder meetings affecting them and affecting the community, and have commented on or attended meetings involving such things as the sign bylaw, the site alteration bylaw, the Peace Park Master Plan, the parking issues meetings, the Fenwick Downtown Revitalization, and most recently are jumping on board to be involved in the new economic development initiatives that we are beginning to explore. To that end, both the mayor and our CAO made a presentation to the PBA regarding the economic initiatives that the town has engaged in or will be engaging in the near future. These presentations were both well received, and the PBA expressed their commitment to the community and to being involved in the process in earnest. That will begin on the 24th of this month, I believe, yes. Mr. Mayor. Mm-hmm. In addition, I'd like to also bring it forth to the public that the PBA has committed funds in the order of $10,000 towards the downtown beautification in Fenwick, and also to the Peace Park Master Plan completion. PBA will be holding elections of a new executive at their annual meeting, which will be held in September, and succession planning within the organization dictates that Tom McIntyre will be, who is the current vice chair, will assume the chair from Tim McAvoy. At this point, Mr. Mayor, I'd also like to express congratulations to Tim on having done a great job as the leader of the PBA for, I think, 2 years now. And he's been an outstanding spokesman for the PBA in municipal issues that the PBA has been involved in. And that concludes my PBA.
Absolutely, and I see Mr. McAvoy's here this evening, so thank you, Mr. McAvoy, for your service to the community in that way.
My next report, Mr. Mayor, is a little bit longer, and I hope council will indulge me in this. It's to speak about something that's been near and dear to my heart since its inception, and that is Summerfest and Summerfest 2013. Summerfest committee has been working very hard on Summerfest 2013, almost from the conclusion of Summerfest 2012. And since the beginning of the year have been working on a weekly basis, planning the many exciting events that are going to take place this year. As council's aware, Summerfest begins on July 18th and runs through to Sunday, July 21st. On the 18th, we again join with the Farmers Market and the band shell to celebrate these two success stories. And we've added the Art in the Park area, and we'll be again offering food and a beer and wine garden featuring artisan beers and a local winery. A special note on this evening will be the kickoff of a new initiative that Summerfest will be bringing to the community this year, and this is the Community Art Wall. And I have, Mr. Mayor, some sketches that have been prepared by Todd Barber as a member of our committee. And the concept here, Mr. Mayor, is that an art wall will be created in the park temporarily, and it will be made up of a series of palette boards that will be painted in various colors, and then members of the community or families of the community will be asked to partake in the creation of this art piece, which will adorn our municipality. And for as little as a $5 charge, you'll be able to add to this community art project and be able to, whether you want to put your family's name on, a special insignia, a special saying that's important to you, whatever it is that you come to mind, as long as it's not illegal or immoral, will be allowed to be put on this. And several other communities have done that around the province, been very successful, and it's actually become a permanent fixture within the communities that have undertaken this, and it's been enjoyed by all. So we encourage the community to be involved in that. The temporary setup will be on the east side of Peace Park, near the little grove of spruce trees that is north of the band shell. Friday, we'll see a continuation of the ideas that were sparked by last year's Niagara Nights of Art. A night that is specifically dedicated to featuring the local artisans, the local performing arts, and we want all of the artisans that are in our community to be highlighted on this particular evening. We have great talent in our community, as we found out last year, and so we would like them all to come out and show us what they've got. Applications for this event are currently being taken, and I believe the application is on our website at this time. In addition, we'll continue with the Art in the Park area, and stage performances will take place within the Art in the Park area. And Mr. Mayor, I'd like to point out that our closing act this year will be a local garage band that last year won AmpFest and was highlighted on the main stage last year on the Saturday. The interesting thing here is, since they performed on our main stage last year, they've gone on and made several recordings. They've been signed by a professional manager and are currently being sought after to perform both in Ontario and in New York State and beyond. So it's a great success story. So we'll be closing Friday night by having the former Greg Maschinter Band, now known as Ivy Coast, performing. A new addition this year to Summerfest will be an undertaking that's a joint venture by Summerfest and MIAC, and that is to hold a MIAC movie night. And we're going to hold that movie night under the arches. And we'll have seating set up there, and there'll be popcorn vendors, and that will take place right after the conclusion of the playing of by the Greg Maschinter Band. So in addition, all of the patios will be open on Friday night as well, to be enjoyed by the adults of the crowd. On Saturday, our street party begins at 10 a.m. and promises to be bigger and better than ever. We have more food vendors and more non-food vendors. Pelham Active Transportation has created a wide range of activities for all ages. A bike and skateboard valet will again be offered, and buskers will abound and will be touring through the entertainment area all day. The kids zone in Peace Park will also offer additional bouncers and kids entertainment with magicians, Zumba for kids, reptiles, and a puppet theater. The main stage will feature, beginning with Fonthill Music and our annual Zumba Challenge. And then we chose this year to feature Niagara artists again. And so we begin the day with the British Invasion Band, followed by the Salt Shakers, which is a Jimmy Buffett tribute, the Mad Hatters, Flashback Modified, the Gormans, and our closing act, the Fantastic Sister Act Band out of Niagara Falls will perform. We will again have our beer garden run by the service clubs in the community, the Art in the Park area, and the Art in the Park stage, which will feature a cappella Niagara, Dan Lestracco and Friends, Mary Lou Minor, which is a country and western group, Greg Maschinter doing a solo performance, and Kindred. This is a day that's not to be missed by people of all ages. We encourage each and every one to come out and enjoy the free fun. Sunday is shaping up to be another fantastic day not to be missed. We will have a community pancake breakfast this year, Mr. Mayor, and we'll be offering breakfast sandwiches, scrambled eggs, sausage, egg white, omelets, etc. And these will be lovingly prepared by our traveling Enbridge crew. And we were hoping, and the Summerfest committee has asked me to put out a challenge to council that all council members would come out and assist in the serving of these breakfasts. It's a great opportunity for council to interface with our constituents and to have informal conversations with them over a cup of coffee. So I would ask all of council to give some consideration to that, and look forward to having you beside me as we slop the eggs and pass the sandwiches. Well, breakfast is being served. We will also be providing some additional free entertainment and have focused on providing some great blues. And so we'll be joined by a great blues band known as Gator Bait, and also by the Steve Burnside and the Marquise. Both of these groups are fantastic. They are award-winning bands. So we'd encourage everyone to come on out, and this will provide food for the soul and the mind and the spirit. And just to help your body get active, the active transportation will be also holding a family walk on Sunday beginning at 9 o'clock. So please come on out. I'd be remiss if I didn't conclude my report, Mr. Mayor, by thanking the community businesses for their great generosity and their commitment to this event, and to the large number of volunteers that helped put this event on. Without their help and without their generosity, this event would not be possible. And when you think of the economic development or impact that our event had last year on our community, we can only think highly of these people and giving back to the community and bringing money and people to our community to show them what we are and what we have to offer in our wonderful Pelham. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much for your very comprehensive report and for your enthusiasm and energy, and certainly really appreciate that and the work, as you mentioned, of the members of the volunteer group that are putting it together, staff that are so actively involved in that as well, and the businesses that are supporting it. So thank you very much, Councillor, for your report and for all of your work. We look forward to a wonderful Summerfest. Certainly you've painted it to be a wonderful picture. We look forward to it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Now to other business, and this is staff reports requiring action. The first item has been moved by Councillor Ribbiak, seconded by Councillor Durley. The Council received the issue sheet regarding the 2013 tax rate bylaw modification for information. Any discussion on this? This is regarding timing change and a little bit of challenge we had with the province. Glad it's resolved. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? It's carried. And I guess that means that there's a different billing date now, and that will be, what's the date on that? July 31st. So people have an extra month to save up their dollars so they can invest in the community. Thank you very much. The next item is the Red Track International sign variance. And I note that Mr. Bowman is here. It has been moved by Councillor King, seconded by Councillor Ribbiak, that Council receive the issue sheet requesting a variance to the Town of Pelham sign bylaw for Red Track International, and the Council approve the sign bylaw variance as submitted. Discussion. Again, a very comprehensive report put forward by Mr. Bowman and Red Track. Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. We look forward to that coming to fruition. Thank you very much, sir. The next item has been moved by Councillor Durley, seconded by Councillor Kersey. The Council received the issue sheet regarding the Memorandum of Understanding with West Lincoln and Wainfleet, and that staff be directed to prepare the appropriate bylaw required to repeal bylaw 3252/2012 and to serve the required 90-day notice of termination to the Township of West Lincoln and the Township of Wainfleet. Any discussion regarding this matter? Mr. CEO, regarding the way in which this is going to happen, obviously the 90 days will come first, and then the bylaw will be rescinded. Is that not the case, or repealed? Is that the case? So it'll be presented to council in 3 months. Is that how that works?
No, Mr. Mayor, I believe that the bylaw would be prepared, and once it's passed, the 90 days would commence, and then at the conclusion of the 90 days, our service is terminated.
I see. Okay. And the other question I had is, this agreement is from last year, from March 2012. So I was surprised to read in the report that we weren't capturing some of the costs that we thought that we should. So maybe I'll ask the treasurer for just a little bit more explanation on some of those costs. It is outlined in the report. But can you talk about the rationale behind this in terms of some of those costs in the new financial system?
The costs that are currently being charged back to the area municipalities include costs of bylaw and the bylaw department only. There's lots of other costs like our IT coordinator needing to repair the software, work on the software and do upgrades. There's the purchasing side of it, there's the accounts payable side of it, also costs of my sharing of going through the agreement and so forth. So those costs in the meeting that we had with the two municipalities when we discussed about going forward and adding those types of costs in, they were reluctant to move forward with a shared services agreement, saying that they could probably do it cheaper at their end as well. And so that's what the discussion led to.
Okay. Thank you very much. Anyone else? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Thank you. The next item has been moved by Councillor Kersey, seconded by Councillor Drilley. The Council received the issue sheet regarding the installation of 2 roof signs at Baggio Pharmacy, and the Council approve the sign bylaw variance request as submitted. Questions? Again, straightforward. Looks like a good development. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. The next item has been moved by Councillor Kersey, second by Councillor Ribbiak. The Council received the issue sheet regarding the Isaac Real Skate Park location, and that Marlene Stewart Street Park Ball Diamond be approved as the recommended location for the skate park, and that the 2013 capital budget be amended to include 1. Project Rec 0413 Centennial Park Soccer Field lighting to $209,000 be reallocated to Centennial Park Ball Diamond number 2 servicing and lighting, and 2. Project Rec 0713 the Marlene Stewart Street Park Ball Diamond backstop replacement $9,200 be removed as no longer required due to the skate park installation, and that the 2014 capital budget forecast item Centennial Park Diamond 3 reconstruction $225,000 be advanced from 2014 to 2013, and the Council directs staff to apply for any available grant funding to support project costs. Comments, questions? Councillor Ribbiak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm sure that my colleagues have received, as I have, representation via telephone and email from a number of people within the community who have raised a question which I think deserves some attention by council with regard to this matter. The question has to do with safety, and of course safety is integral to the entire discussion given the tragic circumstances which led to a great deal of the initiative and interest in the program. And the question that has arisen has to do with the safety of access to Marlene Stewart Street Park for skateboarders. I am aware of, and I think everyone is, that Marlene Stewart Street Park has been used as a center of recreation by young people for 60 years, at least that I'm aware of, because I remember when the swimming pool opened, and that the route into Marlene Stewart Street Park is no less safe for people wanting to use a skate park than it is for others. But I think that the image of young people skateboarding or longboarding on their way to the park across and along the busiest thoroughfare that we have in Pelham probably raises and has raised the question of what has been recognized as a hazard with regard to access into Marlene Stewart Street Park, and what contingency, if any, has been considered with regard to those particular hazards. So I wonder if, Mr. Mayor, if you, as part of the committee that was dealing with it, or perhaps Mr. CAO, might give some thought to the questions of safety and hazards related to access to Marlene Stewart Street Park within the context of of a skate park.
Thank you. If you want me to start in on that, and maybe the CEO can, if there's other information. Certainly, the councillor has indicated this has been a park for a number of years. I pulled Mary Lamb's history, sort of short history of Pelham here, about the Fawn Hill Park, and it says in 1939, when Highway 20 was put through the area, it officially became known as a park. It was certainly used well before that. In 1854, there was a public debate, etc. But it opened on May 24th with sports and fireworks in 1939. Trees were planted, tablet erect with names of the village councillors for that year. In 59, the swimming pool was constructed for community use, and in winter there was an ice rink, and that was an outdoor ice rink. In 2006, the John Demy Trail was opened, giving access to the beautiful woodland to the northwest of the park. And as we saw in one of the previous items, there's pictures there regarding the Lathrop property. In terms of, so I think what the councillor is saying is not the safety at the park with the skate park there, but perhaps access to the park. And I think some of the discussion that was held when the selection committee was looking at the location, a couple of items were raised. First, it was thought that it should have the location itself within the park should be one of prominence, and that is out of necessity anyways because of the size of the park. Will be quite a large construction, about half the size of a sort of a medium-sized soccer field. So. But the second was, the group did talk about that and say that access to the park, not only, right now officially you can come in sort of off Regional Road 20, and there was a commitment from the group saying that that's certainly something that has to be looked at. We should probably get some feedback from staff, but from a regional perspective, I know that there are a number of upcoming improvements that will be occurring in that area, and they could be opportunities to make it safer than it may be now. And those include the repaving of Regional Road 20 from Pelham Street to Peachtree, a new signal at Hay Street, and sidewalks are going to be installed, et cetera, and redone from Peachtree to Lookout, and Haste, of course, is going to be done as well. All that work is slated for 2014. We have made some improvements as well at the traffic light right there at Regional Road 20 and Pelham Street, and that's another way to ensure that it's a safe access. And I know that many people are walking through there, and when I speak to especially some seniors, they're very appreciative of the amount of time that's given to get through that intersection when they hit the button. I don't know if Ms. Van Ravensway, if you want to comment, you were at the meeting. I was thinking the CEO was there, but he wasn't. If you want to comment on the commentary, the discussion we had at the committee meeting regarding safe access to, or safer access to the park at that meeting. Ms. Van Ravensway.
Through to you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, safety was a high priority. We realize that Highway 20 is extremely busy. It was agreed that a committee would be formed, and we would access all of the, within the region, as well as the improvements along Highway 20 to improve as much as possible. Also taking into consideration, the park is an extremely busy park as it is. Our pool is operating from 8 to 8 every morning, as well as we have children going to the baseball diamond. It isn't as if the park is not accessed already. We need to improve the access to, there were different suggestions on how we can do that, and it will be high on our priority list to do that, and a report can come back to council with regard to those items.
Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm pleased to hear the level of consideration that safety was given, and that in fact thought is given to how access to the park can be improved for everybody, I guess, let alone skateboarders going into the future. I don't second guess the choice. I think that the process that was used to arrive at this decision, and I guess the process was used twice to come to what I consider to be excellent decisions, not an easy one, and given both the circumstances in which the decision found itself, as well as the amount of interest, not to say controversy, that from time to time arises around an issue like this one. I think the committee did an excellent job. I think that it is important for people who are looking at this proposed use of the park by skateboarders as in fact being part of a pattern, part of a trend, part of something that's been going on for a long time, that it is likely not any less safe for skateboarders than swimmers or skaters or baseball players who use that park. They all have to cross that same street. They all have to go down that same street. It would be wise, of course, for skateboarders to perhaps refrain from skateboarding down the hill. It might also be wise to indicate, if signage doesn't already exist, to motorists that in fact there's a park down there and a lot of young people use it throughout the year. So I think improvements like that may come, but I think that I've received that question often enough that I think it was worth spending a few minutes just addressing that issue here publicly and openly.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor. Others? Councillor Thurston?
Thank you, Mr. Not on that issue, but something else, if I may.
Okay, go ahead.
I have a couple of questions, and I'm not exactly sure who to direct this to, but I would like to get some clarity on the money that's being expended this year on the improvements in Centennial Park. We're sort of rejigging from one thing to another, so could we get an encapsulated number here on how much we're spending?
It's a good question because some of it was in the budget before, we approved it, and then we moved it out, and now we're putting it back in. I think I'll turn to the treasurer for that, Madam Treasurer.
The recommendation is to use the same amount of funds that were in the budget that were moved once already. That hasn't changed, so there's no excess dollars being asked for to do this, the works that are in this report today. However, there is one recommendation to move one of the soccer fields forward from 2014 to 2013. And that was discussed because we feel that the Peace Park Master Plan monies that are in the budget won't get acted upon this year, and maybe those could move to next year, and this could come in place of it so that we can move forward with this skate park.
Does that help, Councillor?
So for clarity, if I may, we are going to construct a soccer field at Centennial Park, but it will be unlit. We're going to light Ball Diamond and reconfigure Ball Diamond 2, so it'll be a lit and a full-service diamond. And we're going to construct a Diamond 3, which will be unlit.
Correct. Right.
So we're moving the Diamond 3 reconstruction 225 from 2014 into 2013, with the presumption that we're not, that will just basically be offset by the savings on the Peace Park.
Correct.
Okay, I think I caught it. Okay, my follow-up question is, Marlene Stewart Street Park has had a master plan in place for a number of years, and it was envisioned within that master plan that the diamond would be gone anyway and replaced with a splash pad, and that the splash pad was planned also for 2014.
Correct.
Has thought been given to, when I look at the configuration in the master plan of Marlene Stewart Street Park, it speaks to access, it speaks to sufficient parking for all the activities that are going on there, development of the splash pad, and now the skate park. So will we be receiving a report prior to budget time with respect to improving those amenities such as parking and access and all that, because they all have budgetary implications that may go beyond the rec budget for next year. So I just am asking the question whether we will receive that report
Ms. Van
well in
Ravensway,
advance.
Mr. CEO, Ms. Van Ravensway?
Yes, through to you, Mr. Mayor, definitely. You will be receiving a report. It's been a very busy 2 weeks, in getting to this point, and from then on, we will be looking at our 2014 budget and whether it's feasible to continue on with the splash pad. We are reconfiguring the parking lot, as you can see by the master plan. So that will be done as well.
Thank you, Councillor.
Is it envisioned that the parking lot will be reconfigured at the same time as the placement of the skate park? Since we'd have the equipment in there and what have you at the same
Ravensway?
time?
We are hoping that that's the case. We will just have to see how it works out. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Others? Councillor King.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't actually have a question with respect to this, but I do want to make a couple of statements. I'm disappointed, extremely disappointed in the location. However, I do respect the process that was followed and the players that stepped up to the plate to reach this decision. Echoing Councillor Ribiak's comments, I also received a number of emails with regards to safety, crossing Highway 20 and so on and so forth. I do want to correct the media statement that was made that there are no neighbors. In fact, there are neighbors all around Marlene Stewart Street Park. And Mr. Mayor, you referred in Mary Lamb's excerpt there to the beautiful woodlands. The noise that will be generated by the skate park down in the pit will absolutely have an echo throughout that ravine. And we already see the reduction of wildlife in that ravine as a result of increased foot traffic on those trails. This is only going to add to that situation. And those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Others? I'm going to just briefly comment on a couple of items that have been raised, if it's okay with Council. When I outlined some of the history of the park, some of the other history includes a velodrome at Marlene Stewart Street Park, a skate park for a number of years, in that area, skate jumps and things. So it already has had a history of this type of activity in the area. I'm not sure that, you know, I visited a couple of skate parks recently. I'm not sure that they're any louder than a baseball game or pool activities, etc. So I don't have the same concerns of another councillor about wildlife in the area. The concerns that another couple of councillors have raised regarding safe access to the park, there are a number of initiatives. I can think of others. For instance, the downtown master plan that's being worked on that the CAO just indicated a couple of answers ago would be coming forward to us this fall. That's an opportunity for council and the town to help increase access to the park and make it safer. So I look forward to that. And so I think I just want to highlight this from Councillor Ribiak's questions and Councillor Kersey's questions and others, that you know, I think we should expect a report coming back to us in coming months, 3 months or so, to say, here's some improvements that are being done. There's, as I mentioned earlier, discussions with the region. The region has on its docket our motion about slowing the traffic in that area to 40 kilometers because of the installation or the improvement of a school, and the master plan's on our agenda. So all of these initiatives, I think, can be lined up along with the master plan work of the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council, which is, I'll give you a sneak peek. The Mayor's Youth Advisory Council, as leaders in the community, have looked at this and said, how can we make skateboarding safer in our community? One of the ideas that they've had, and they've kind of fleshed out on it is make it cool to wear helmets. And they're considering recommending to council some sort of incentive program, much like we do with water barrels, or a sticker program, that kind of thing, to try and make it cool so that youth in our community wear helmets and skate safely. So there's a number of initiatives coming forward, and I don't know whether the councillor wants to make a specific motion to direct staff to come back with a report on this initiative to how to make access to Marlene Stewart Street Park safer, or whether that will just come forward with a number of initiatives. It's up to council, but I think those things will be coming forward, and certainly opportunities to ease some of the concerns that folks might have for that. It was a difficult process to go through it twice to cite the skate park, but I think this is I looked again at the report that's before us and the evaluation criteria, and this is the best location for the park given the constraints that we now have, and so I'm looking forward to it coming together, and if there's things that we can do to make access to the park safer, let's do them. If there's things that we can do to minimize the impact on neighbors and on existing uses of the park, including the trail system, let's do them, and that's why those individuals are welcome at the design meetings. But I also think we do need to move forward and build an amazing skate park for our community. I guess the final comment is a councillor stated that it might be busy and I guess implied that it's going to be busy and noisy. I think it just speaks to if that's the case, it speaks to the reality that this park is needed in our community, and we anticipate that it's going to be very busy. So I think there is that feeling around the table from the design group that they don't want to hinder the community. They want to minimize any impacts on the community, but they want to have a great skate park. So I look forward to the process moving forward on that. Those are my comments. Thank you, members of the council. So we do have a motion before us. Are we ready for the question? I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you, and thanks again to all those involved. The next item is relating to the 2013-2014 insurance program. It has been moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Kersey. The council received the issue sheet regarding the 2013-14 insurance program, and the council approved the 2013 insurance program with Cowan in the amount of $130,460, and the council approved the 2014 insurance program for the amount of $260,920 as part of the 2014 operating budget process. Discussions? Councillor Ribbiak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was intrigued, I guess, by the report, which indicated, I guess, that we had asked for quotations, asked for proposals to cover our insurance, as we inevitably should, and we received two, one from Travelers that currently insure us, and one from Cowan, who proposed a lower fee for more service. And I guess what intrigued me was that we ended up really having not an apples-to-apples comparison anymore of insurance, but apples and oranges. And I'm just wondering whether the process included an attempt to determine whether the other supplier might have a fee for the additional service, or what the cost might have been had the oranges been converted back to apples. Might we have done better in the price, getting the coverage that we were actually looking for in the first place? That's what intrigued me. I don't know whether there's a quick answer. I'm all in favor of paying for more coverage more efficiently, but I'm just wondering whether this apples to oranges comparison mightn't have provided us with a better result had we tried to compare them both equally.
Ms. Pupol?
I'd like to defer this to our insurance broker, Mr. McAvoy, if that's okay with you. It's better to answer that.
Okay, council, we're okay with that. Mr. McAvoy, you prepared to accept the deferral?
Apples and oranges, yes, thanks. Just to jump back really quickly, and I'll just give 30 seconds on that. When we were with Cowan's 2.5 years ago, their program was superior, and there was no question. Trouble is, their price wasn't. So what we did was we went out to the marketplace, and back then we did have a company. It still wasn't quite the same, but they matched it fairly closely. Since that time, their capacity has dropped. And for instance, on the errors and emissions, the most they could offer us was 10 million. That was non-negotiable. It's just the way it was. You know, is it adequate coverage for us? Yes. Could something go higher? Sure. So when you get to that point where it's not that much more money and you can get that much better coverage, it's really, to me, that's what should be done. The apples and oranges chart, which presented to staff, is probably about 4 pages long with all the comparisons. We have to go through that. There's always 1 or 2 things that are better probably on the other one, but there's no question that the Cowan proposal is superior.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McAvoy.
And not the other one could not be brought up to even compare it.
And that, thank you, Mr. Mayor. That I think is the answer that I was looking for. That in fact the product simply wasn't available, and therefore no price would have been provided for that superior. Thank you. I'm satisfied, Mr.
Okay.
Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. McAvoy. Other questions for Mr. McAvoy or Ms. Pupol? Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. McAvoy. Going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thanks, Mr. McAvoy and staff, for your work on that. The next item is one to which we received a presentation earlier this evening. It's been moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Kersey. The council received the issue sheet regarding adding Provincial Offences Act fines to the tax roll, and the council authorized the mayor and clerk to enter into a transfer agreement with the Niagara Region to add POA, that is Provincial Offences Act fines, to the tax roll under the Municipal Act, Section 441.1, and the council approve an administration fee of $50 to be established for adding POA fines to the tax roll. Discussion? Councillor Durling.
Just a question through you, perhaps to the treasurer. Would $50 be in the realm of cost recovery, or that's why I'm assuming that's why $50 was suggested? But does this cover all the cost that it would be to do this, considering the fact that we will now be in more communication as per the report that we heard earlier? There will be a lot more communication going back and forth with those folks, and you know. I'm just asking, is $50 going to be cost recovery?
Ms. Pupol.
For you, Mr. Mayor. We did do a little bit of costing out by each staff member that would be touching this at this point in time. And we also went out to the other municipalities to see what they were doing. Some are only charging $30. We didn't feel that that was sufficient given the cross communication that has to happen between the region. So this will be a fee that goes on to our consolidated user fee schedule. And as we start this process, we'll be able to determine exactly, you know, how many hands are touching it, how much time does it process it, and then we can bring it back forward and recommend a fee increase at that time. But right now, it's the best fee that we could determine based on not really knowing how it's going to process at this time.
Okay, thank you, Councillor.
Just a follow-up question. At any time, we could amend that fee?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Others? Councillor Kersey?
I just have a comment, Mr. Mayor. When you sit down and actually crunch the numbers, and what we're talking about, the amount of gain is very nominal. You know, you boil down all of those fines that are behind, and you take out those that you can register against. You're talking about 2 people, 2 properties, $11,000 total recovery, less the region's percentage and what have you. So I just wonder whether there's a lot to do about nothing, and it would be interesting to get a follow-up report to see whether it's even worth our while doing it. I mean, will take people away from other projects that might be much more meaningful and much more contributory to the health and well-being of our community. So that's a comment. It's a concern I have that we're going to be spinning our wheels for not a whole lot of gain, and it would be interesting, if we're going to follow through and get into this program, to get a subsequent report that indicates what in fact we've actually gained from the time expended, and has it been worthwhile, or can we opt out?
Okay, thank you. You want to comment? He just said it's a comment, but
We have to remember that it's all 12 municipalities that we share that money with as well. So in St. Catharines, for instance, if they have 2 million that they can collect, then when they do the aggregate splitting, that increases our operating budget revenues each year. So, and for me, every $5,000 is a lot of money, so I'll take it.
Well, if you don't spend 10 to collect that, I'll be happy.
all right. Thank you, Councillor. Others? I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Kersey, second by Councillor Drilly, that the issue summary report entitled the 2013 debenture request be received for information. Discussion? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Next, we have bylaws. It's been moved by Councillor King, seconded by Councillor Clark, that leave now be given to introduce the following bylaws and dispense with the reading of the bylaws. There are 5. Being a bylaw to amend the tax levy bylaw for 2013 installation dates. 2, being a bylaw to authorize the borrowing of the sum of $714,900. The 3rd, being a bylaw to establish standards, regulations, and maintenance requirements for swimming pools, their enclosures, and equipment. The 4th, being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 1336 to 1987, 1136, 1987, as amended for 550 Weber Road. And the 5th, being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to enter into a site plan agreement with 2367777 Ontario Inc. Discussion? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. It's been moved by Councillor King, seconded by Councillor Clark, that the following bylaw have been considered the first time be numbered as follows: bylaw 3387 2013 through to bylaw 3391. Be now considered a second and third time and passed, and the mayor and clerk do sign and seal the same, any rule of council to the contrary notwithstanding. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Here's this piece. This now. Okay, so now we're turning to a matter that was arising out of the Committee of the Whole, or Policy and Priorities Committee. This was what I alluded to earlier. This is moved by Councillor King, seconded by Councillor Clark. The Council received the issue sheet report entitled Potential Access to the Lathrop Property and Trail System for Information. Is there any discussion regarding this this piece? Councillor Kersey?
Would it be in order to move an amendment, Mr. Mayor, that this report be forwarded to the Pelham Active Transportation Committee, since they had commented on it and made this request to council?
Certainly would be in order. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor King. So the amendment is that we also forward this to the Pelham Active Transportation Committee for their information. I'm going to call the question on the amendment. All those in favor? Any opposed? The amendment is carried. And now to the main motion as amended. Any further debate, discussion? There being none, I call the question as amended. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried as amended. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Durley, seconded by Councillor Kersey, that council recess the in-camera portion of the meeting and reconvene immediately following the Policy and Priorities Committee meeting scheduled for later this evening. We do have one in-camera item, and we will recess that and the rest of the meeting. We're going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. This portion of the meeting is now adjourned, and we'll recess later. Let's take a 5-minute break. Thank you.